Hey everybody, it's Flake again for Team Rankstar. I've got another deck for you to go ahead and play in ranked and casual, whichever you prefer. But since the time that I'm recording it right now is Halloween, I decided what better than to play a monster deck and the Queen Arachas herself. This is a swarm type variant, lots of points that you can get on this one. A lot of fun. You can have big combos, big epic plays that you can make. So go ahead, give this one a whirl, and let's walk right through it. All right, so for a Queen Arachas and a Swarm type deck, I mean, the point of this is to sort of have a large board with lots of units on it that you can eventually sort of synergize off of and generate a lot of points based on a lot of smaller units that kind of snowball, create a large board presence that eventually overwhelms your opponent in the last segments of each round, culminating into a round 3 win. Long rounds are kind of your friend in this game. You're not going to get many points just off of 1 or 2 drops. You kind of want to be able to play cards and have them interact off each other so that your value over time becomes exponentially better, and you eventually outpace your opponent just dropping big cards down the road. So let's just walk through this one over here. We'll start really quickly with the bronze package, and we'll start with the cheap units as well, because every good deck will have a lot of good 4 provision cards there to maximize later on bigger powerful cards. So you want to save as much cost with you know, your small 4 or 5 provision cost cards. So the first one we have is the Arachas Queen. Larry makes a return, and a lot of people have said, why aren't you playing Larry? Make some Larry decks. Well, here he goes. He makes his first appearance in a deck guide, and 1 strength off of 4 provision. I mean, this card is kind of not exactly the most amazing thing, but the key thing that we're always going to come back to is the fact that he is 1 strength. So what he does, deploy and deal 2 damage, and then he has a Death Wish ability. Now, given the fact that there are some consumable units in this deck, or units that consume other units, the Death Wish will probably trigger, not to mention 1 strength. Thrive is okay, not a big deal, but 1 strength is gonna play a factor, I promise you. So we'll get back to that a little later. Now, the other one is Necker, another 1 strength 4 provision card, which seems like, you know, not much impact. It'll split into 2, creating 2 of the same unit. And again, when you're playing this deck, a swarm deck, you want to have as much board presence, so you want to be able to drop 1 card that creates multiple units as much as possible. Necker's good for that. Again, the Thrive ability, you might get extra points down the road, but Thrive is really not what this deck is all about at all. The point, again, is get cheap cards that have some synergizing effects with your deck strategy, and the 1 strength is going to come into play, I promise you. Now, keep going down the road. Here is your MVP, the Vran Warrior, 4 provision, 3 strength, and his magic ability is whenever a unit is destroyed during your turn, damage a random enemy by 1. Now, here's the fun part, is that you're probably going to be killing a lot of your own dudes. It sounds ruthless and it's just awful, but you're going to say goodbye to a lot of your own units in a very vicious fashion. So there's going to be plenty of massacres for this Vran to go full machine gun on the opposing row. So basically, with all the different cards that you have in your deck that either consume units or deal 1 damage across the entire board, etc., this guy's going to make all of that so much better. Not to mention the fact that every time you consume your own unit with either one of the Slizzards or whatnot, he will then fire off a ping at your opponent. Now, if that ping happens to kill another opponent, one of your opponent's units, what does that mean? Well, it's easy. What it means is that he gets another shot on the other side of the board. So there's going to be some opportunity for some big plays. He's a unit that you want to protect and not necessarily slam down early to eat removal. You kind of want to be a little bit careful about when you play this guy, but I promise you that that's a great card. Now, Arachas Nest, 5 cost for 4 1 strength Arachas drones. They're doomed, but who cares? It doesn't matter. The point is that you're generating a row of 4 dudes, of 4 Arachas drones to get some board presence. Again, 1 strength, they're just there to, you know, basically die and or get buffed later on down the road. You're going to form a board presence early with this. This is kind of a card that you want to be able to throw down and start consuming off of, or, you know, when you're ready to sort of kill your own dudes with, you know, Forktails, or consuming them with your Slizzards or your Karen. Just, you know, this is a safe card to throw down early, because oftentimes, you know, if they have a 3 or 4 point removal, they'll have to waste a lot of that value on a 1 strength unit like this guy. What else do we got? Slizzard, easy. Now Slizzard comes down with a order consume an allied unit on this row. So you put him down, and then he starts eating away at your own units. Now the cool part about it is that he's able to protect himself against removal based on the fact that he absorbs strength from whatever he consumes. So if you're afraid of something coming down like an Alzur's Thunder to kill him or whatnot, put him down, and you know, if they start wailing away at him to try to bring his strength down to kill him over 2 turns, just start eating bigger things to keep his strength within that safe zone. Not to mention everything you consume, your Arachas Queen will spit out a 1/1 drone, so that's fantastic. So you'll get extra value every time this guy consumes. Another unit that you kind of want to be able to protect because it fits into the engine piece, but if they have removal, they have removal. If not, they don't. But you can't win them all, so to speak. Now, Forktail. Forktail is a great card, and this was one that didn't make the first cut of this deck. But then I put him in there and said, "What the hell was I thinking?" Damage of all units by 1. So what does he do? He just one big Stammelford's Tremors over the old school Stammelfords. Over the entire board, dealing 1 damage. Now, if they're outpacing you and there's more units, fantastic. You get that extra value. Now, the other part is that anything that dies on your side will spit out a 1/1 drone. So let's say you have a whole bunch of 1/1 dudes on your side of the board. You throw the Forktail down, and they all get replaced because Arachas Queen is going to spit out more dudes. Fantastic, amazing, sounds good, right? The other part is that if you have Vran on the board, he'll start popping off and going haywire. So this is a great part for a good round 3 board setup, wherein you're going to have a whole bunch of drones. You might have a Vran setup. You throw down Forktail and just watch the balance of power shift, because that 20-point deficit is now going to be even Steven. You're going to be able to make up a lot of points with Forktail, with a lot of drones on the board and a Vran. And if you get 2 Vrans, if you're lucky enough to have them both stick, then more power to you. Get ready, start clipping, because it's going to be majestic. The other bronze card I want to talk to you about, of course, Bomb Heaver. There's a lot of cards that might ruin your day. Now, Ethne is a problem because she just pops off and can just kill your 1/1s easy peasy on her own turn, and that really messes with your synergy and messes with your game plan. Ethne is like the kryptonite for this deck. It's going to be a problem. It's not a favorable matchup, so if the meta's heavy with Ethne, maybe don't play this deck, but it's fun anyways. I've beaten Ethne with this deck, no problem. We've had a lot of fun. Moving on with this, the Bomb Heaver, again, is what's going to go and pretty much nullify a lot of problem artifacts like the Spear. So toss him down. He's 4 points for 6 provision. No problems there. What else do we got? We have Predatory Dive. Predatory Dive is a great spell that I've had a lot of fun with, because it's kind of like a Scorch and a Epidemic on first turn. Now, it says destroy one of your lowest units, but it also says something along the lines of on your side and their side. But if it's their first play, if they're playing first and they happen to play a big card, my favorite is when when they play the first card, they boost it with tactical advantage and then give it immune with Aridin. Predatory Dive just says goodbye, thanks for coming, and it wipes it all out. Fantastic card, amazing, love it. I've had great success with this card. I've had 2 copies, but I ended up cutting one. But it's a good card to have, and don't get too greedy with it, because you might lose the fun of it. Because this is very much a card where your opponent plays something big to start a round, and you just burn it off the board with Predatory Dive. Immune, no immune, doesn't matter. It's gone. Lastly, Golden Froth. Many times you'll have 5, 6, 7 units on a row. This is going to boost them all by 2. It's 9 provision, and it's rightfully so, because this can really change the tides. Eventually, your opponent will just run out of removal. You'll overwhelm them with a swarm of little dudes, and this essentially just punishes them for leaving a row enormous. Now, I haven't come up with a lot of row punish. Things like Regis, etc. has not really made its way in my games with playing as Arachas Queen, so I've been pretty much free reign with this deck to just drop and go ahead and boost, and I've loved it, and it's been great. And it's won me rounds, it's won me games. I play 2 of them, and I'd play 4 if I could. Unfortunately, the provision cost is just out of control, not to mention obvious deck limitations for building. All right, let's go to the wonderful gold category, and we'll start with some of the more boring ones. Frenzied Dow, you've seen this in a lot of guides. It's a great body to provision cost value and destroy an enemy artifact. You can never have enough artifact crushing, especially in this deck, because again, spears are 5 provision cards that ruin Arachas Day, because you'll just ping off one of your little dudes every time and you'll never get them back. So I like crushing Sea Hill with this, Spears with this. It's been great. The other one that we've got is going to be Doragaria Vol, lock a unit. There's the lock options in monsters are very, very thin. So I do have this as an 8 provision 6 body lock a unit. Usually this comes in to lock something like, what can I say? Like a Siri Dash or something along those lines, or anything that's really pinging your units down. You want to save your locks for. I'm not too afraid of cards like Siri Dash that draw cards, but you want to gauge your opponent, what they're playing. If they're playing a lot of cards that just shoot one unit, shoot one damage to clear your board, that's what you want to be locking. So we've got him in there as well. Royal Decree, because you want to have a little bit of opportunity to draw your big bomb cards. There are cards that in certain situations will absolutely change the tides, like your Forktail, or other cards like Glusty Warp, which I'll show you shortly. But this is a card that just allows you to go ahead and grab it. Sometimes you want to get Vran with this. Honestly, if you suspect your opponent is not going to be doing anything to disrupt your board setup, then go ahead and grab Vran and just watch the fireworks fly. This is a fantastic card, and I feel it's definitely needed in here. The other one is Kayran, because you can drop him with Zeal, consume 3 things with your Vran on the board. This is great because you pop off with 3 consumptions. Your Vran goes off for 3 damage, and then you replace with 3 additional drones on the board. Kayran is good. I like him. He synergizes really well with this deck. The other one that we've got is the Arachas Behemoth. Now, also 8 provision, 2 strength. Isn't anything all that spectacular, but the good part about this deck is that when you drop this on the board, he besides the boosting, it also pops off 2 extra drones. You want bodies on the board for this. You absolutely want to establish a vast amount of dudes on the board to start working towards your win condition, which is swarm, boost, damage, and self-sacrifice, and that's what the Arachas Behemoth does. Further beyond that, let's see what else we got here. More of the spicy ones. Germain is just, again, 4 cost, put him on 4 strength for 11 cost, put him on the melee row and get 5 bodies. You want bodies on the board. I can't stress this enough. So we really pack this deck in with things that spawn more dudes. You want to be able to throw down as many cards that have that give you a favorable board presence, and Germain does just that. Now, some of the more exciting ones. Now, Yen. Now, it's very interesting how I've discovered that this card has been doing more for me from a damage perspective on the melee row than it has for boosting my own dudes on the range row. If you put her on the range row, she boosts all your guys by 2, or everyone on the board by 2. If you put her on the melee row, she damages everything by 2. But the fact that you need to understand is that with Vran on board, and the fact that you go ahead and replace all your damage or all your units that die, sometimes damaging the whole board is a much better and much more favorable option for Yen in this case. So just judge it, figure it out. If your Vran will survive, he might pop off for an extra 10 damage, depends on what dies. It is definitely something spectacular to watch, and the first time that you pop her off and your Vran goes on a complete like firing range spree, you'll see just why this whole deck is fun to play for those specific moments. And finally, here he is, my friends. This is the one that really gets the job done. It is Glusty Warp. Destroy all units with 1 power. For each unit destroyed, boost self by 1. Now, this counts for your opponent as well. So your opponent might drop some things that get shot down by the Vran to 1 damage, this and that. You put this down on the board with, a whole bunch of little 1/1 drones. He absorbs them, kills your drones. The drones get replaced. He gets boosted to all hell. Vran pops off again, and hello, 25, 30 points. And it is just spectacular to see. You can be behind by 20 points, 25 points with 1 or 2 cards left. If Glusty Warp and a good board presence is what you've got waiting in your back pocket, don't hesitate. It'll catch your opponent by surprise if he's not suspecting it, and just watch as he just looks at you and reads the card and figures out what the hell just happened to him. It is a great thing. This deck has been performing well. I took it onto ladder and had a good time. And won. I've taken it to, I've played against a plethora of different decks. I've beaten Reveal with this deck. The only deck I didn't beat because I didn't draw well was against a Bears discard deck, but I've beaten Ethne with this deck. It was tough. Ethne then came back and beat me a couple times as well. Ethne is probably your worst matchup for this deck, but the pieces are there to have at least a phenomenally fun time. So I do recommend you give this one a look, kind of follow the guidelines, find your fun with it, and see what happens. But yeah, I mean, it's nice to play monsters again, and Arachas Queen has some actual punch behind her. So that is my take on Arachas Queen Swarm. I had a lot of fun with it. Hopefully you do as well. I always invite your questions, your comments, your suggestions. If there's a card that I should have put in there, is there, you know, other options? If you don't have particular cards, feel free, reach out. You can always catch me on Twitch, twitch.tv/WatchFlake, or on Twitter @WatchFlake. I answer all my questions. It's always good to hear from you guys. You can always just go ahead and like, share, subscribe on this channel, this video right here. And yeah, by all means, drop some comments. And you can always catch more videos at teamrankstar.com. I have some articles up there as well. Lots of fantastic things going on there. So I will see you soon. Please have fun with it. Be kind to one another. I will catch you very soon. Later.